Hi everyone, welcome to InfoConsulting's on-demand webinar on ESG and industry trends for 2025. We're very excited to have you and very excited for this topic today. I'll start by introducing myself. For those that haven't met me, my name is Marina. I'm your Customer Success Account Manager for Australia and New Zealand, and I will be your host for today's session. I'll start by taking you through our agenda for today. I will share a little bit about InfoConsulting, who we are and what we're all about first. Then I will be handing over to our speaker, Caitlin, who will take us on an ESG and industry journey. We will then answer a few of your questions that were emailed to us prior to the session today. And finally, I will wrap up by giving you a quick look into our Support Plus program and how our customers have been leveraging it to drive business from the IFS solutions. Okay, I will start talking a little bit about InfoConsulting Australia and New Zealand. We are a part of the InfoConsulting group. We are a global company operating from 11 different countries, with our head office being in Poland. In Australia, our offices span from Perth to Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, and Sydney. We currently have about 500 customers globally and about 350 employees in total. Our industry expertise lies in manufacturing, construction, mining, and service management. We are also the only IFS Platinum Channel partner in Australia, 1 out of 5 globally. What we do, we have over 25 years of experience working as trusted advisors to our clients, delivering exceptional IT services and solutions and real long-term business value to our customers. Right, now on to the good part. Our wonderful presenter for today, Caitlin Keam, is the Head of Sustainability Applications at IFS in the UK. Caitlin is responsible for the development of new products focused on sustainability data management, while also driving sustainability embedded across all of the IFS products. Her goal is to support our customers in broader sustainability goals. Caitlin is going to give us some insightful ESG and industry trends. She will talk a little bit about IFS Cloud and how it supports ESG journeys, and she'll be answering the questions at the end of her session. Now on to you, Caitlin.
Cool, thanks Marina. Almost the perfect intro. That is exactly what I do. We have a huge strategy focused on sustainability embedded in IFS Cloud, which I will take you through today. And first I'll start with an ESG introduction, just some views on what's happening globally, and then a focus on regulations, again, global regulations, what they're looking like, and some of the changes happening out there. Then we will look at the product strategy in IFS Cloud for sustainability. And as Marina mentioned, this includes new products as well as embedding sustainability and driving operational sustainability. But then the focus for the session today, with the time we have, I'm going to look at the new products we're developing within my team, the Sustainability Applications team. That's sustainability management for your ESG disclosures and emissions management for reporting on emissions. So first, the ESG intro, just to give an overview of what ESG means. It's really the set of environmental, social, and governance metrics that you report on to investors or other decision makers, but really it's focused around investment. This is different from the term sustainability, which is how we move forward into the future while conserving the resources that we have now. And ESG is well, okay, how do we measure that? How do we make it globally similar so we can compare it? And how do you measure that impact? So ESG is very, very data focused. Sustainability is how do we do good business? And then your corporate social responsibility is really how you engage with your employees and the community and support social initiatives. So a little bit of a view around some of the different terms that we put out there, but a lot of what I do, I focus on sustainability. This would include the ESG metrics, but I think it's it's more of a focus on how it can be operationally sustainable, reduce emissions. So you'll see a lot of sustainability coming up. And then to give a view of some of the challenges out there, a big one that we're working on is this data challenge. And this is one of the biggest challenges within ESG. It's how do you get all this environmental and social data across all your sites, all your entities in a consistent way. And the challenge with this data is that sometimes it's data that's never been captured before. You got to go out all across your business and start understanding your energy consumption, biodiversity, water, more information around your workforce. And then another challenge with it is, prior to like these regulations coming in, is data holes, which is data that isn't so well defined yet. How do you define biodiversity? How do you define it in a consistent way? How are organizations out there collecting it in a consistent way so that it can be comparable? So there is this big data challenge. And then there is, of course, climate change, the climate challenge, where greenhouse gas emissions are increasing, and this has a direct link to the increase in temperature, and this leads to lots of climate risks, global warming. And we can see here that since the start of the Industrial Revolution, and there's a significant increase in greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. And these are our two challenges that would globally kind of, how do we get the data and report on it? But it's not just about data. There are global challenges out there, such as climate change, that we need to start tackling through data and a lot of initiatives like decarbonization. So with these in mind, I just want to then bring it to climate risks. This is big and growing regulations that organizations are reporting on, their climate-related risks and as well as opportunities. And just to give a view by sector, a lot of companies that I work with are sitting in these sectors. A lot of us at IFS and yourselves probably recognize these sectors here. And I like working at IFS and the industries I work with, because I feel like these are highly exposed, asset-intensive industries with a real opportunity for decarbonization, but also, you know, there's really a lot that we can do. These are organizations sitting in risky spaces, and how can we use data to start addressing this? So just giving a view by sector around some of the risk exposure that is out there. And then just to give a quick intro on organizational carbon footprinting, just in case there's anyone who's hasn't seen this before or doesn't have understanding around the scopes that emissions are reported in. This will be important when we start seeing product and we start talking about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So globally and across the world, it's pretty much required to report on your carbon emissions, not just through regulations, but many stock exchanges ask for it, investors ask for it, customers, suppliers, and it's becoming very, very normal and standard to report on. So your scope 1 emissions are your direct emissions. So if you could see carbon going to atmosphere at your site, you would see I have company-owned vehicles, I have a coal boiler, I have a diesel generator. These are within my direct organization, within my control. These are my scope 1 emissions. Scope 2 emissions are your emissions from electricity, steam, heating, and cooling. So these are indirect because those emissions are physically occurring at the electricity generator. If it's a coal-based economy or whatever fossil fuels used to generate that electricity, that's where the emissions are occurring. But we're turning the lights on, we're consuming a lot of electricity, so it comes through as our scope 2 indirect emissions, and its own scope. There's a lot of opportunity to reduce it, as well as just you measure it as you have the impact of those emissions going to atmosphere. Then your scope 3 emissions are all your other indirect emissions. There's 15 categories. So this is a consequence of your organization's activities, your products being transported on outsourced distribution. You don't own the trucks, but your products are being transported. You have a say in packaging size. How much goods can you fit onto that truck or whatever freight transport you use? So that's why it's indirect, and as I mentioned, it falls within these 15 categories, from either your upstream emissions to your downstream emissions. And this is where a really big part of that ESG data challenge comes in, because now this is data that you need to collect that's outside of the borders of your organization, and you need to start going into your value chain. Okay, so we have all this data that we need. We've got to calculate emissions, environmental, social metrics, and there's growing regulations out there. And a start with these regulations and reporting on these is a double materiality assessment. So when we talk about ESG metrics, not every company in the world is reporting on all of them. You report on what's material to you based on the impact that it has, so the environmental impact, as well as the impact financially on your business. So this is why it's double. It's both environmental and financial. And this really gets you to the set of environmental, social, and governance metrics important for you as an organization. And then that gives you the starting point to start understanding your risks and opportunities. If you're in a business that isn't heavily biodiversity exposed, then it's likely that you don't need to report on it, and that's not where you're going to spend your time and your effort. Then there's growing mandatory reporting requirements out there. So growing regulations, growing needs to report on this in your annual report, or maybe have an annual sustainability report. And then it's also, not just reporting, setting your targets, having strategic sustainability. When I speak to customers, there's a huge kind of initiative out there of embedding and integrating sustainability into the business strategy. This isn't standalone, it's part of a business. It's how do we move the business strategy forward with sustainability in mind. It's also required in some of the growing ESG standards would say, how are you integrating sustainability in your business strategy? So don't see it as standalone, but see it as something that supports your business and can be very strategic. Okay, so setting the scene a bit around just ESG, carbon footprinting, what's going on out there. Then a real quick overview around regulations. So the big one, Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive in the EU. This is based on the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, and there's many of them. You see the ESRSs on the screen in front of you. Everything from climate change to your workforce, communities, and some governance metrics. So there are over 1,000 disclosure metrics with more granular data points. This just means breaking down a disclosure metric. So that's what we're doing in product. If you have a disclosure metric that is % of female managers, then we would break it down into employees, females, managers, so that you have all the data points you need to build up these disclosures. But you don't report on 1,100, you report on whatever is material to you based on the output of your double materiality assessment. So there's some recent news out there called the Omnibus. So this is a proposal in the EU to reduce the required number of disclosure metrics and to delay the CSRD by 2 years, taking quite a few of these companies out of scope. So this isn't in force right now. We're kind of following it and just making sure that we see what's coming around the CSRD. So that's what's going on in the EU, but there are growing regulations for environmental and social sustainability globally. And, you know, as I mentioned, it's not always just based on regulations, stock exchanges, annual reporting investors. There's lots of different needs to report on your ESG metrics. But the one that I really want to talk about is the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board. So these are the standards that have come out under the IFRS, focusing on your climate-related disclosures in the first wave of it. And this is, you know, we just did an intro to carbon footprinting, looked at climate change, the ESG data challenge. So this really focuses on your strategy, reporting on your metrics, governance around this, and risk management. So there are many regions globally taking these ISSB standards. For example, in Australia, it's the Australian Sustainability Reporting Standards based off the ISSB. And growing, I would say, if it's not the EU or the US, almost all other regions are taking the ISSB and building their standards on top of it. So for us in product, these are the two that we focus on. These are the two that we'll continue to focus on. And I've been doing some level of ESG reporting for a long time, and I would say these standards, you know, they're built on standards that have been around for a long time. The way that you report on energy is kind of unchanged in the industry for a long time, and now it's just about how you disclose out on it based on the requirements of these growing regulations. Okay, so that sets the scene around what's going on globally. Now I really want to show you our product strategy. So after lots of meeting with customers, research, understanding the industry, we have come to 5 strategic focus areas for sustainability embedded in IFS Cloud. This is owned by my team in new products, emissions management and sustainability management, and embedded across the product teams, which I think is really good, as this is kind of operationally ground up how we're supporting this. So circular operations in the manufacturing product team, really focusing on remanufacturing. We've got a lot of great feedback from analysts around how unique our remanufacturing capabilities are. Then we have supply chain sustainability, which is this growing need for environmental and social data across your value chain. And we have growing partnerships to get this data from data that already exists, so that we can support stopping this loads of questionnaires going out all over the place to get this data, and data sitting everywhere, but working with the right partners. If the data exists in a database, how do we just connect to it, bring it into our supply evaluation module, and done. And then performant and sustainable assets. This initiative is really focused on decarbonization, looking at asset lifetime extension, anomaly detection, you know, efficient running of your assets as a really big opportunity to reduce emissions. But I'm going to show you emissions management and sustainability management, a new product in IFS supporting those growing disclosure needs. So sustainability management. For sustainability management, we support CSRD and ISSB, and we collaborated with PwC in the UK to build this out. And this collaboration was really important for us because with CSRD, CSRD was the first one that we did, being relatively new, as you can see, even the omnibus is out there and things are changing as we speak. I mean, when we started building this, the CSRD regulations changed twice, and we updated it twice. So at least we know if there's changes out there, we're really good at updating it. But it was just important for us to work with the organization out there who's at the forefront of these standards and also understands the growing need for assurance of these standards. And PwC is very experienced in auditing, so how they could help us bring those processes and controls into product. So what we aimed to do was tackle this complex and changing landscape of regulations. The big thing in sustainability is really financial reporting with non-financial data. So how do we bring this quality up to standards of financial reporting, and seeing this opportunity in tech to tackle this data challenge? And that's been a big focus for us, a big focus on data management. Often get the question of, we're building the last line reporting tool or the data tool, and think of it as data. We want to bring in data from IFS Cloud or external data and really put that focus on data and the controls for audit. So two parts of our collaboration with PwC. The one is their CSRD and ESG experts helping us on the build of the product. They're in the product team. And then they also have advisory services, including your double materiality assessments that I mentioned, that you kind of need to do prior to starting with disclosing on these regulations, and understanding, you know, what entities are in scope, how good is your data? Do you have all the data that you need? Because you could do a double materiality assessment and now suddenly you have metrics in scope that you haven't reported on before. I use the biodiversity example a lot because it's a good one, but that's kind of what we're seeing growing. And then, I mean, the part that I like and care about is product. So you don't have to work with PwC for this. We just want to be able to make sure we have the right expertise around us. But if working with PwC means that there's this easy get started part from product, from the output of your double materiality assessment to those KPIs that you need to report on. So this is the product part that I, of course, really want to show you. And this is what we did. So we launched this towards the end of last year, so November 2024. And this was built around defining and the data management and disclosure of your sustainability KPIs based on CSRD. So where we did CSRD first, we now have ISSB coming in our release next month. So it's currently in product, ready to be released. There's also the ability to have your custom defined KPIs or copying a KPI and aligning it to your business if needed. Then a subset of these KPIs we've automated to data in our human capital management module, or you can import data, manually upload data. And then, as I mentioned, with PwC, making sure we had the right controls in place. So to give you a quick view of what it looks like, I mean, I always want to visually see. This will just take you through an example around what we did in linking KPIs to sustainability goals. So here you see your sustainability goals. And this was important for us because we got a lot of questions from customers around, okay, great, I have all my CSRD KPIs in here, but beyond reporting, I also have this net zero goal, and I want to make sure that the KPIs in the system help me towards my goals. So it wasn't something we had to do for CSRD. It was more around managing sustainability and having everything in one place. Cool. And then ending here, just showing you the ability to build up your entity structure based on that scoping exercise of what entities do you need to disclose to for these regulations. Okay, and here just wanted to give you a view of the KPI catalog, everything that we have in for CSRD, and this ability to create your custom KPIs. If you have KPIs that are important to you as an organization, but aren't necessarily in the regulations. For us, the percent of female managers one, that's not necessarily in the regulations, even though I use it as an example, but it's important for us in the tech industry. Okay, and then also just to show you this ability around adding your data and adding source documentation to it, as well as if you wanted to add notes or comments on it. Working in this field for a long time, I've seen every weird and wonderful thing that exists in ESG data. So the more you can describe what's going on, the easier it will be for your annual reporting and getting it through audit. And then what you saw here was this assigning it to a data provider and an authorizer, and this focus around management of your data, making sure it's accurate, and having your source documentation against it. Okay, and then this view to create your snapshots. This is also for audit, so you can download your snapshot at a point in time, and then it's set in the system, and then you can view your historical measurements in any kind of view that you'd want. If you're familiar with IFS Cloud, then you all know this navigation through views. And then a management style lobby. So if I'm an authorizer and I come in here and go, oh, I have 7 more KPIs that I need to authorize, you can navigate through here to help you finalize that sustainability plan and get your data to 100% completed. Working in sustainability and consulting for a while, I know how onerous that can be, and here you have one place where you can kind of view your progress. All right, so that's the view of what we launched. And as I mentioned, we now have ISSB in there, so this would be important for other regions, including Australia. And also coming in our next version, we have the IFS.ai Copilot with the CSRD standards loaded in there, so you can ask questions, and as you're kind of navigating this and understanding your disclosures, you can start kind of conversing with the standards and let that help you make sure your data is accurate and reported in the right way. Okay, so just to kind of recap on what I showed you and what we're really focusing on and want to achieve here, it is really this focus on data management. We've automated some KPIs, but going forward, this is going to be a big focus for us, continuing to build out the automation. This module comes with a data lake, so we're automating it through the data lake, really focusing on data. And then the ability to have your goals linked to your KPIs, helping you see this more from a strategic perspective. So think of the standards and the regulations as something that's helping just to define how you track this, but this isn't something that we're going, oh, okay, just meet regulations, okay, over, but how do we really help with the data management to be more strategic and help you get closer to also being more efficient as an organization. All right, so then an overview of emissions management. So we did CSRD first, then in this release coming up, ISSB, and emissions management also coming in this release. So to report to many of those CSRD and ISSB KPIs, you have to calculate your emissions. And based on a double materiality assessment, I'm seeing emissions be material to almost everyone. So this is something that organizations across the world need to report on. So what we have done is we built emissions management in IFS Cloud, covering your Scope 1 and your Scope 2 emissions. We have a partnership with Climatic, so we have access to over 160,000 emission factors, and then scientifically vetted emissions results. So they've got a lot of certifications, greenhouse gas protocol aligned, and that gives a confidence that the results coming back through to Climatic API call is accurate and correct. Then we're launching this with pre-configured templates, so you can set up the way that you need to report on your emissions once. So you build your template for, say, a diesel generator, and then you just send this to all your assets that are diesel generators, and if there's a change, you do it once in your template. So trying to avoid this setting things up hundreds and hundreds of times. We also have an integration with asset management. So if you have your assets in the system in IFS Cloud, you can toggle on emissions generating asset, and this will build your asset hierarchy for emissions. Almost all Scope 1 emissions are some kind of asset, your coal boiler, diesel generator. So this helps you just get set up. And here's a prototype view. I mentioned that this is being released in our release coming up next month. So here I'm just giving you the overview of what it'll look like. So your ability to have all your emission sources, and then you're adding your data against your emission sources. So bulk Excel upload, manual entry, and then in our next release, we will look to integrate this to utility bill data within finance in IFS Cloud, and really focusing on the data management side of it, and making sure that is easy. And then just a lobby view of the ability to go in and see your emission sources and where you might need to add more data, and then of course have your overview around what are your Scope 1 and 2 emissions looking like. So we've seen sustainability management, seen emissions management, and then we have a lot of initiatives in supply chain sustainability, as I mentioned, that growing environmental and social data of your suppliers. But the one thing I wanted to show you today was emissions in procurement, which launched last year. So this tackles the one Scope 3 emission category, that is your purchased goods and services done in procurement. And this is our approach for the Scope 3 categories that make sense within IFS Cloud if the data is there. Do it as close to the source as possible. So having this in procurement means procurement managers can decide, I want to purchase this good or use this supplier, also based on emissions. And it's not just only sitting within a sustainability team for reporting on this, but we can take the result of this data and have it in emissions management for a one place of managing your emissions. But here you can actually do something about it within procurement. So this is part of our embedded approach. It's also a partnership with Climatic. It's AI auto mapping for your your purchased goods to an emission factor. Most organizations have thousands and thousands and thousands of purchased goods. So being able to map it to an emission factor based on your region and your type of good, and have your emission output. So we will continue to work on the remaining scope 3 categories, but we're taking this very embedded approach to it if that data does exist within IFS Cloud. Okay, and then here's a view of what's coming in our release next month, your supplier ESG performance. So this in supply chain and procurement, a partnership where we can bring in data based on environmental and social metrics and overarching ESG risks. So this is an integration and really building up this data so that you can see this in one system, and you're not necessarily having to go and always ask your suppliers for the data. If it exists, it exists. You can, of course, use B2B portals or add additional metrics in here if there is data that isn't coming through this integration. But if it's there, you can go get it. Okay, so that's an overview of what we're doing for sustainability management and emissions management, the new products that we're working on. Here's just a recap of our roadmap. So I mentioned that we've got CSRD and ISSB and Scope 1 and 2 around about now. Then coming up for our release towards the end of the year, more focus on AI, so using those co-pilots to help you generate the content for your qualitative KPIs. 70% of CSRD is qualitative, so there's a lot of manual descriptions that you need to do. So describe your transition plan to circularity, describe your strategy for decarbonization, and then how we can get Copilot to assist you within that. And then on emissions management, continuing to build out Scope 3, and then expanding to non-greenhouse gases, so including things like pollution, your SOx, your NOx, VOCs, and so on. Okay, so to wrap up, I just wanted to leave you with some last overview. So really the idea here is not to just think of this as reporting for reporting, but it's growing your organization to be more resilient and more efficient, and using data to help you with this. And then to finally have this view that yes, we're doing a lot in IFS and IFS Cloud to support you, but it isn't the only answer. This is really, really, really big. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot that needs to be done. It's the entire value chain. It's decarbonization. It's not easy. And for us, we have growing partnerships around us for ESG data, climatic, PwC. We work very closely with customers and partners, like me being here. So I do just want to wrap it up with this fact that collaboration and partnerships is really, really important. I will often say sustainability isn't achieved in a silo, so I'll just kind of encourage us to keep working together. Okay, thank you. That's it from me, and I think we have some questions.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. That was really enlightening, and it will definitely help our customers in Australia and New Zealand to start thinking about their ESG journeys and how they can leverage IFS Cloud to support them through it. As mentioned, we received a few questions via email prior to the session, and Caitlin was kind enough to answer those for us. So I will read those through and her answers for everyone. Starting with the first one on the top of the screen, can IFS Cloud collect and manage sustainability data needed for ISSB and CSDR reporting, including from external systems? IFS Cloud can get ESG data from both internal IFS modules and external sources via file uploads or integrations, enabling a full view of performance. The second question is, can the sustainability solution be tailored to meet local regulations or specific industry KPIs? To which the response is, customers can add custom KPIs to the KPI library or copy a KPI and edit it for local requirements. And finally, the third question is, does IFS Cloud support full emissions tracking, including Scope 3? Scope 1 and 2 are included in emissions management, and select Scope 3 is embedded at the source through capabilities like emissions in procurement. Going forward, Scope 3 will be supported with flexible templates and integration points, so you can bring in supplier data, logistics information, or third-party calculations to complete the picture. We know that there might be more questions and you might have other feedback that you'd like to share. If so, please feel free to reach out to myself. My email address is on the screen there, and I'll be sure to give your questions all a look, send them through to Caitlin, and get back to you with a response as soon as possible. Okay, now I also wanted to take a little bit of time today to introduce you to our Support Plus program. This is our tailored program that support our customers once their go live hypercare period is completed. We really understand at InfoConsulting that ERP solutions are the backbone of modern enterprises, and efficient support is not just about resolving issues, but it is about enabling your business to operate seamlessly, to maximize your system's performance, and to drive innovation. Over the years, the InfoConsulting as a group, as a whole, has identified a really strong need from our customers for ongoing application support and strategic advisory services once their projects are past go live. We recognized that we needed to create a proactive, business-driven support service approach that aligns technical expertise and strategic goals into one program. Now, Support Plus is a tailored program that will meet each of our customers' specific needs from a selection of services that we've designed over the years by working with our customers. Things like general support in resolving simple user questions, or having access to an experienced consultant when required that really knows your IFS solution, really knows your business and can help you really quickly. Having access to a developer to design a report or make a configuration change. Managing your IFS environment, server environments for a few of our customers, or training your team on how to use IFS correctly, onboarding new team members, maintaining your IFS environments, but also having the latest updates and the latest patches, amongst other services, are a few of the services that we sort of outline as must-haves for most of our customers. Our engagement model was really designed to be a true extension of your team and provide you with the responsiveness, the expertise, and the strategic guidance that you need for long-term success. Now, if you want to hear more about Support Plus and you want to discuss how it would look like, what it would look like for your business, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And that concludes our session for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, if you have questions or feedback on the content, please feel free to reach out to myself directly. Also to discuss Support Plus if you are interested. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.